So I did a would you rather video a couple of months ago. You guys seemed to really enjoy that, and there were a lot of submissions that I didn't get to, so I thought it was time to make a part 2. So I posted over on my Instagram, which you should follow me on, by the way, and once again I asked for some would you rather questions, and I then posted those questions to you. I haven't looked at the results of those polls yet. We're going to now. I'm first going to answer the questions how I personally would, and then I'm going to see if my opinion matches yours. So let's jump into it. And the first question is, would you rather make poor quality bracelets quickly or make higher quality bracelets but 10 times slower? Personally, I don't think this is a difficult question at all. I would definitely go for the slower option. I'm very much a perfectionist. I want my bracelets to look a certain way. I want them to be up to the standard that I personally set for myself. And I find that that is a quite high standard because a lot of the time my bracelets don't meet that. And I would much rather spend a lot of time on a specific bracelet getting it to be to a point where I'm happy with it than make a lot of bracelets that I'm not happy with. If I'm making bracelets that I'm not happy with, I'm not going to be happy. This hobby isn't going to give me the emotional fulfillment and the creative fulfillment that I want. And I like to work at a slower pace sometimes anyway. Like this month, for example, wasn't super productive for me in terms of bracelets. It's the 25th of September as I'm filming this, and I've only made 2.5 bracelets this month, which isn't a lot. Granted, one of them was quite big. It was the diamond cross bracelet that I just did a tutorial on. So that was a pretty big bracelet, but still, I didn't make that many bracelets this month, and I'm completely okay with that. And I'm pretty sure you guys are gonna agree with me on this one. I think it might be a little bit difficult for people who actually sell. It might be difficult for you to make bracelets at a slower pace, but I still think the majority is gonna be with me on this one. So let's check. So I posted these 6 hours ago, which isn't that much time. I probably should have waited a little bit longer before filming this video, or posted earlier so that more people could see. But about 2,000 people voted, so I think that's enough. And yeah, you guys definitely agree with me. It is 89% high quality slowly versus the 11 for the poor quality. So I'm very clearly in the majority with this one. The next question is, would you rather have a lot of shades for a specific color or have only one shade for each of the colors of the rainbow? And this is obviously in reference to string. I don't know. If we're going for different shades of a color, we're gonna have white and black, whatever color we choose, because that is essentially a shade of a color, well, technically. So you're gonna have multiple shades of a color and then white and black. There's quite a lot of bracelets that you can do with that, but at the same time, where does the shade end? Because like if you take green, for example, you can go with like a yellowy green, or you can go with like a blue green. There can be different tints to the color. I'm thinking way too much about this question. I think there's a lot that you can do with one shade, especially if you have black and white with it as well. There's a lot of different color gradients that you can do. If there's differences in tone as well, there's a lot that you can do there. But at the same time, having different colors is also nice. Having one shade per color of the rainbow. Let's say that, for example, even you have black and white with that as well, because like just for the sake of the argument. I don't know. I really don't know with this one. Before I sat down filming, I thought I was gonna answer the rainbow version and have one shade per color. And I was gonna argue that by saying that that's actually what I had for a really long time. If you watched me at the very beginning of this channel, or if you maybe watched those earlier videos as well, you could see me talk about the fact that I used to really like the craft cord by Loops and Threads, and that only comes in a specific number of colors. There's not that much shade range with it, which is really the reason I stopped using it. And I used that for years. A lot of years. I don't even know how many, but like multiple years. I only really used that because I bought like 3 or 4 different packs of it and I just didn't run out, so I didn't have to buy more string. It wasn't such a big hobby of mine that I went out and bought more string. It's just I used what I had, and I had like a limited number of colors, and it was essentially the rainbow, white, black, and like brown. But now that I actually sat down to film and I'm talking, I might just go with the one color but like different shades of that color, because I think there's a lot that you can do with that. Not only that, I'm actually thinking of maybe that could be a challenge video that I could do at some point. Anyway, I'm curious to see what you guys are gonna say, because I really don't know. I'm gonna predict that it's gonna be closer to 50-50, but I think it's gonna be leaning more towards the rainbow. But let's see what you guys actually said. Oh, I was wrong. And I am still in the majority with this one. So I chose the majority, but for some reason I thought that you guys wouldn't agree with me. I'm surprised. I thought it would be more in favor of the rainbow, but interesting. I quite enjoy making videos like these because it's always interesting to know what the community thinks, because we each have our own opinions, but it's really interesting to see what like the majority of us thinks. This isn't a huge sample size, it's only about 2,000 people answering the polls, but still, quite interesting. Alright, next question is, would you rather have to knot 4 hours a day or only 1 minute a day? Honestly, I hate questions like these, because why do you make your would you rather questions designed to make me suffer? A lot of the questions submitted were like, oh, would you rather have this horrible thing happen or this horrible thing happen? Or would you rather stop making this type of bracelet or stop making that type of bracelet? Like, oh, give me a would you rather question where I actually want to choose one of the options. options instead of I'm choosing like the worst one of the two. Anyway, that's just a thought of mine after reading like all the questions that people submitted. Both of those options are horrible. Like, I do not want to spend 4 hours a day making bracelets on days that I can't do that, for example, or I have other things that I want to do. And then I also don't want to spend 1 minute a day making bracelets. So both of these are pretty terrible in my opinion. I think you guys would expect me to choose the 4-hour option, but I also think that a lot of you guys have a really weird perception of me. Like, you seem to think that all I do in my life is make bracelets, which is absolutely not the case. I've only made 2.5 bracelets this month. I barely made any. I just talk about them a lot. Out of the two options though, for me personally, I will still probably choose the 4-hour option, even though that would be exhausting and I would probably just like drop that hobby if I had to do it for 4 hours a day. It's still better than 1 minute a day. Plus I can do other things while I'm knotting. Like, I can watch something, I can listen to an audiobook or listen to a lecture of something if I want to like educate myself. I can talk to my friends and family because everyone's far away from me. There's other stuff that I can do while making the bracelets, and I have a really weird life where I'm basically free to create my own schedule, at least at the moment, since I finished university and don't have a job yet. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that option because 1 minute a day is absolutely nothing. You can't make anything with that. But I'm curious to see what you guys answered. My prediction is probably the same, 4 hours, because 1 minute a day is essentially giving up the hobby. So we'll see what you guys said. Yep, it's 81 to 19, 4 hours a day. I'm curious how that would even work and how quickly people would get bored sick of making bracelets. Neither of those options are good. Alright, next question is, would you rather only be able to segment knot in the shape of a candy stripe or in the shape of a chevron? For those of you who don't know what segment knotting is, I explained this in detail in my normal pattern tutorial video. There's timestamps so you can skip to the segment knotting section if you don't need the tutorial for the regular method of reading normal patterns. But essentially it's when you read the normal pattern, instead of going row by row, you go in sections. And you can do them in specific shapes. Like, you can, instead of going row by row horizontal, you can look at a candy stripe shape and make knots in that order. You can look at it in a chevron and make knots in that order, which is what you do when you make a triangle end, for example. So that's essentially what the question is asking. Personally, this is very easy to me. If those were the only two options, neither of them are ideal, to be honest, but out of the two I would definitely choose the chevron because that's just more interesting for me. And I also find that when you're knotting in the shape of a chevron, it's kind of more balanced, because when you're knotting in a candy stripe, the knots at the bottom get a little bit stretched out because you're pulling on them harder than the ones at the top. At least that's what the experience is like for me. So I'm gonna go with a chevron and I'm gonna check out what you guys say. Haha, so far I have been in the majority. It's 83 for chevron and 17 for candy stripe. So it looks like I don't have many unpopular opinions, at least right now. I'm interested to see if I'm ever gonna be in the minority in this video, at least. The last video I did, I was for a couple of them, but I'm curious if there's gonna be some this round. So the next question is, would you rather quit making bracelets altogether or only be able to use scrap thread? Once again, I think that this is quite an easy question, to be honest. If the option is quit doing something altogether or do it with restrictions, whatever restrictions those may be, I'm always gonna choose do it with restrictions because that's better than not doing it at all. So that's a pretty easy pick for me. But also, when it comes to scrap thread, there's so much that you can do. There's a lot of different bracelets that you can make with scrap thread. You can use it in alphas to make like rainbow backgrounds or just multicolored backgrounds. You can use them in alphas just in normal, like when you need a small amount of the color for your design, you can just use scrap thread, which is what I do a lot actually. So I'm definitely gonna go with the scrap thread option. I actually made a video recently about scrap thread. I have a giant collection of it. I went through my collection and talked about how you can use scrap thread in your bracelet with giving different examples from different creators. So if you find yourself with a lot of scrap thread, that might be a video that you want to check out. I'll leave it on the card and in the description. There's a lot of different tips there. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that. I assume this is what everyone else chose as well. This seems like a really easy question, so let's check it out. I'm surprised that it's not more of a majority. It is 83 versus 17, but I thought it would be closer to like 95 to 5. I'm surprised that 17% of people would say that they would quit. There's a lot that you can do with scrap thread, honestly. Like, check out that video. I gave quite a lot of tips in that. All right, next question is, would you rather only make normals row by row or completely quit making alphas? Now, this is one that I think I might be in the minority for, because I feel like a lot of people make normal bracelets row by row and like don't complain about it. They just are fine with it. I can't. I can't. So this question for me looks like stop making normal patterns or stop making alphas, because if I can only make patterns row by row, I'm not gonna make them. That is excruciating to me. It takes so much time. I can't focus. I get lost in the pattern. I can't read a pattern like that at all. It's so frustrating and I can't do it. So it's either stop making normals or stop making alphas. And between the two, as much as I enjoy both of them, I do find myself gravitating more towards normal patterns in general. So I'm gonna have to choose the stop making making Alpha's version, so I can still make normal patterns the normal way. But I would be very sad because I do quite enjoy making both of them. But let's see what you guys said. Aha, so as I predicted, this is the first question where I am actually in the minority. And the majority of people chose to do bracelets row by row so they can still make Alphas as well. 66 to 34. I can't say I'm surprised because, as I did say, a lot of people actually do make bracelets row by row and don't complain about it. I just personally can't. I just cannot. I don't get any enjoyment out of it when I do bracelets row by row. I can only segment knot, and that's that. Like, I can't do it any other way. Next question. Would you rather have strings that are not long enough to create a tie, or have your bracelet be too wide to fit your widest crimp end? When your strings are too short to make a tie, that is so frustrating. I absolutely hate it when that happens. That is the worst thing, because you start making the tie and then at the beginning it's like sort of thick, and then at the end when all the strings get too short it's getting really thin because there's like 1 or 2 strings left that are of the size that you need, and you have to like cut them out. It's such a mess. So definitely not that. I would much rather have my bracelet not fit a crimp end because you can narrow it down. You can narrow down your bracelet to fit your crimp end if it's too big. The way you do that is you essentially start making a triangle end, but you don't go all the way until the tip. You stop making the triangle, you stop making the sort of narrowing of the bracelet when the bracelet reaches the width that you need for the crimp. So you start narrowing the bracelet down as if you're going into a triangle end, but you don't go all the way. You stop when the width is exactly as you need it to be for your crimp end. And I think not only is that a way out of that situation, it actually looks really cool. And I've been wanting to try that out for a while. I just haven't gotten around to it. But I've seen other people do it. I think it looks really cool. So I'm definitely gonna go with that option because I don't really see that as a hindrance. I don't see that as an annoying thing. I actually think that's really cool. So I'm gonna go with that, but let's see what you guys said. All right, so once again, I am in the majority here, 70 to 30. I'm surprised it's not more of a majority, to be honest. I thought it would be closer to like 80%, but there you go. Next question is, would you rather use thread that is covered in makeup or thread that is soaking wet? And then once again, this is one of those questions that just wants to make me suffer because neither of those options are good, are they? But I think this is a relatively easy one to answer, as much as both of them are like, ew. I would probably go with the wet thread. Makeup can be really difficult to remove, especially depending on like what makeup is it, and it can like smudge and just be gross all over, plus like bacteria and stuff. You know, you don't want that on your bracelet. If it's wet, it will dry. You don't really have to do anything about it. It's just gonna dry at some point. Like, you can wash your bracelets. I did a whole video on it if you want to see, like ages ago. It's very cringy. But you can wash your bracelets, and in fact I recommend you do so if you wear your bracelets a lot. Wet thread is just gonna be inconvenient to knot with because it's gonna be more rough and just kind of icky. But I've done it. I usually keep like a mug on my table somewhere with like tea or water or whatever I happen to be drinking at the time, and sometimes when I'm knotting a bit too enthusiastically, bits of my thread do end up in the cup, and I have knotted with wet thread before. It's gross. It's not fun, but it dries, you know? Like, it's not a big deal. It will dry out. I'm gonna say I'm probably in the majority with this one as well. I'm gonna predict a 70-30 split. Let's see what you guys said. I was somewhat close. 77-23 for the wet. So it's a little bit more on the majority than I thought, but I was close. All right, last one for this round is, would you rather make patterns where the colors flow together or make a pattern that has distinct borders? This is very difficult to explain, but hopefully you guys understand what I meant and what the person creating the question meant. There are some patterns where the colors sort of work together. It doesn't even have to be a gradient, it could just be colors working together, but there are also patterns where you can have a distinct and clear outline, whether that be with black or white or just, you know, a different color. There is a distinct outline that separates some colors from other colors. Personally, I like both, and I've made a lot of both types of patterns, but I do have a preference for patterns with borders, simply because patterns with borders, you can use sparkly thread as a border, or as the inside of the, like what's inside the border. You can use multicolored or metallic or different kinds of threads. I find that it's easier for me to find a place for special kinds of threads when there is a distinct border, because I can use them as what's within the border or as the border itself. Or if there is like a border separating two different colors, one of them can be one variety, the other one can be another variety. I like to use a lot of special thread, and I find that borders help me find a clear place for them in the design. So I'm gonna go with that. Curious to see what you guys say. I really don't know. I think it might be close to 50-50. I don't know. Let's see. I have no idea. Oh wow, that's not 50-50 at all. It's 68 versus 32 for flowing colors, so I'm once again in the minority. Interesting. I'm surprised. I thought it would be a very difficult decision, but apparently the majority likes flowing colors. Yeah, I'm definitely not in the majority for this one, which is quite interesting because I thought I would be like one of the halves, I guess, but I'm not. Well, that was fun. I quite enjoy videos like these. I really like getting to know what you guys think as well, and I really enjoy these sort of like community videos where we can interact with one another. If you want to play more Would You Rather with me, you should definitely come to my streams. I stream on Twitch pretty regularly. I try to do it about twice a week, and we tend to play Would You Rather on there quite a lot. So come follow me on Twitch, you'll get notified when I go live, and you can play Would You Rather with us in the chat. If you want more content from me, you should definitely follow me on my second channel, on which I post whatever I feel like. I recently posted a video about my experience failing high school, not getting my diploma, and not getting into university, which was a difficult video to film because I talk about my struggles with mental health stuff, but I'm glad that I filmed it. I got some really nice comments on that video. I read every single one and I really appreciate them. So you can check that out if you want to. There's going to be a link in the card and in the description. I also want to give a special shout out to my patrons and especially my top supporters whose names are going to appear on screen right now. Thank you guys very much for your support. I really do appreciate it. And if you also want to become a patron, there is a link in the description where you can sign up and get exclusive perks for your donations. Once again, it's the end of the month, so I'm about to send my Patreon perks for the month. So if you want to get yours as soon as possible, this is the perfect time to join as I'm about to send them out. In any case, thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Feel free to continue the discussion in the comments. Drop your answers for the questions here. I'd love to keep the discussion going. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!